The Monday Maydayology podcast by Hasty Fire Products, home of the Hasty Rescue Strap, the game-changing rapid intervention tool. Hey, welcome back everyone. I want to thank you for joining me today. Today's a very special episode. This is the first episode where we're going to go pretty in-depth with the line of duty death that my department experienced. So I have a friend of mine, TJ Prieur, coming on today to talk about his experiences. TJ's a great dude. He's got a little bit of a different outlook on life than most of us. He's not the big tough fireman who tries to stuff everything down, and he's really open to things that he's feeling, things that he's experiencing, and he uses all of this stuff to lift up everybody around him and try to make everyone around him better. So he's a really incredible human being, and I'm very excited to have him as a guest. We go kind of all over the place with this conversation. So we talk a lot about his upbringing and what got him here. And at times it seems like we might be going off a little bit, but keep in mind that this all kind of plays into where he is today and how he's learned to cope with everything that he's gone through and how to in turn help others be better. But without any further ado, we're going to start the podcast with my friend TJ Prieur. All right, and we're back with another episode of the Monday Maydayology podcast, and today I have a really special guest, a friend of mine, TJ Prieur. TJ works with me in Frederick County, Maryland as a firefighter. We're not on the same shift or anything, but we're on the same shift at neighboring firehouses, so we see each other from time to time on calls. TJ's got 10 years of combined service in the fire service, so the last 7 of which have been with us in Frederick. He is also a Medal of Valor recipient, an Ironman competitor, a mindset coach. He's presented at the Key City Fire Conference last year, and he's going to be presenting again this year. And then I think above everything else, he would agree that he's a husband and father. So TJ, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, dude, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm stoked to be on your podcast and share a little of my story, and hopefully somebody listening can get a couple tools out of it and try to better their life. So I'm stoked to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man, there's all kinds of stuff we can get from this. So TJ's got a pretty incredible story from basically the start of his life up until now, and there's all kinds of stuff that you've dealt with and gone through and really has put you in kind of an incredible position today. I know there's a lot of positive things along the way, a lot of negative things, and it seems like you've taken everything and tried to make something positive out of everything that's happened to you. And then, additionally on top of that, we are going to discuss the line of duty death that took place in our department, which you were heavily involved with. And I know that was a catalyst for a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about later on today too. So, hey, let's just get into it,
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Happy to have you here. So whatever it is that you want the audience to know about you, or wherever you want to start, however you want to kick it off, the floor is yours.
Yeah, shit. Well, thank you so much. So I guess we can start back, just see how far back we want to go. We won't go too in detail, if you will, but I'm a really firm believer in growth comes through our uncomfortable times, and it's all about shifting our perspective into a new way of looking at it in order to actually learn from that situation. Otherwise, I feel like we keep repeating our cycles, and a lot of us will live, a 6-month period over and over and over and over and over until we die. So I was really blessed to go through a lot in my childhood years, and then go through a lot when I was in my 20s as well. But I also had a lot of fun and had a lot of really good people around me. So we can kind of dive into that. So coming from a background of a divorced family, I always had that drive to feel loved, if you will, and didn't really understand that until I became older, when I didn't allow that feeling to really dictate everything that I was doing, right? And it wasn't even until recently to where I dove really, really deep to even understand enough about myself to even know how I absorb love, or how I give it out, or happiness, or whatever you want to call it, an ultimate high frequency of just epicness. But basically, I got moved around a lot. My mom was a single mom. We were just trying to survive, and my father was living his dream and doing rad shit. He was a professional motocross racer and a professional jet ski racer, and won some world titles and did some cool stuff there. And I always strived to do things of that nature, and I never had the opportunity, which really hurt for a long time. Now looking back, I'm pretty excited of where I'm at now, and I've put a lot of work into where I'm at now. But it was through a lot of adversity. So anyone that's listening, man, if you're going through the adversity, it's really important just to kind of zoom out a little bit and look at your life as a whole instead of this little segment that might be uncomfortable in the moment. But anyways, I got moved from California into Iowa at middle school, at the end of middle school, right at the start of high school. And it was a big shift, going from the crazy world of California into like the farm lifestyle of Iowa was a wild ride, and ended up like going into a community college for my fire service cert. It wasn't even a question about what I was going to college for. I knew when I was 5 years old that I was going to be a firefighter. So when all my friends were like, where are we going to school? What do I want? I just kind of found where everyone was going and then saw if they had a fire service program. Like, sweet, I'm going there, and had turned my 2 year degree into 3.5 year degree, like most of us did during that time, if you will, and met a lot of incredible people and have just the most incredible friends still to this day, and really keep up with a lot of them. And towards the end of that college career, I fell in love. So I thought, right, and ended up moving into Illinois, and then about a week before I was proposing to that girl, I found out that she also had a whole lot of handful of other boyfriends. So one of those like big put the brakes on, holy cow, I had all this figured out. I was on a volunteer department there. I had my degree. I was moving in with the girl I thought I loved to, oh my God, like I can't stay here. I got to roll out. So I ended up packing my shit and getting on the road, and I always had a dream of living in Colorado. I always knew I would be there. I always knew I'd live on a ski resort. If I knew how I was going to get there, I probably would have backed the brakes off and said, I'm good without that, because that was a lot of pain there. And literally just took off on a road trip to nowhere. And, as the universe or God or whatever you believe in works through you when you ask for that help, and that guidance. I got a phone call about 2 hours into that road trip, and one of my best friends from high school had heard about this quick breakup from the day before, because when I heard about that to when I left was about a 12-hour segment. And he was like, dude, where are you going, man? And I was like, I have no clue, dude. Like, where are you at? He was like, I just moved to Colorado. I live on a ski resort and I got an extra bedroom, dude. I'm like, I'll see you in 2 days, bro. And this was like, boop, 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 put in the tom. I'm gonna cruise by mom's house, drop off a bunch of my shit, and then just start getting it. Like I'm gonna find myself out there, because I felt like I lived a lot of my life trying to make everyone happy around me. I didn't put a lot of emphasis on my own life, and I got a lot of my joy by helping others and serving others. But I also never wanted to be alone, right? Like if my house was empty, I was leaving and I was going to find people. I was going to the bar. I was cruising around campus till I found people, because I needed that company around to feel that love. So right when I rolled into Colorado, man, it was magical and scary for sure. I just remember like cruising in about 20 miles from where I was living, where I was going to live. And it was like desert. And I'm like, whoa, dude, like I envisioned this thing being so much more magical and so many more mountains. Like that whole like John Denver, I was full of shit. Like I was there. Right. So I'm like cruising in. And needless to say, about 8 miles out of town, you come around this corner, dude, and it's this heavenly scene of literally nothing but mountains. It was one road in, one road out of a ski resort they call it the last great ski resort in Colorado. And it was indeed like just that, dude. And I remember rolling in there and just like giving my buddy a huge hug and being like, I'm here to find my soul, dude. Like I knew it right then. This is my mission. I want to learn about who I am, what drives me, and find my happiness without anybody else's influence, right? So the goal was to go there for one winter and kind of find myself, if you will. Then I find myself there for 8 years, which was the most magical 8 years, where I inevitably found my wife on the ski resort, who kind of had the similar story there of how she got there, and we started having children, and Colorado was a pretty cool place because I kind of found myself at a pretty high space of just being in nature, and everybody there was so passionate. They had so much passion for what they did. And it was like these dudes were ski bums. We were all so broke, but so happy. It's like you'd go to a bar and have a beer and you'd meet somebody who was so passionate about kayaking, but they wanted to teach you everything about it. Or you'd meet another guy who knew everything about splitboarding and backcountry riding, or somebody teach you about dirt biking, or someone teach you about snowmobiling. And there was so much passion in that town that it was magical. And it was like, all right, dude, like, what do I want to get into? What do I want to find? So I kind of went off on this journey, right, of just like finding my soul, finding my purpose, finding what made me happy, what drove me, fly fishing, rafting, all of these things. And then I came into this position where I was missing the fire service. I was really missing the EMS service and really like helping people. Unlike a lot of firefighters, I feel, get into this, like, I just want to ride on the wagon and the truck. Like, I really enjoyed the medical side because I'm I'm so enthralled with the body and what its capabilities are. And it's like working on a dirt bike motor, but way gnarlier and way more sophisticated, right? So I ended up going back. I had let all my certs lapse at that point. So I had to go back and get everything redone. Went back to EMT school and all of that, and ended up getting a job as a ski patroller. So I went from being a ski bum and being a lift operator to being a ski patroller at one of the gnarliest resorts in the country. We had the most lift accessible extreme terrain in North America, like bombs on our back, throwing avalanches, you know. And that really was driven by me being out in the backcountry one day on a snowmobile where I was just literally high marking everything that I saw, sending all of these cornices and just living the best life. And all of a sudden I cruised up on an avalanche and these four dudes were just literally mortified in tears, hysterically crying. And they had just dug their best friend out who was buried in 16 feet of snow. And I remember looking up on that hill and being like, how is that possible? It's like the smallest hill, dude. Like we ride mountains. This is on the side of the road. That dude died there. Like, all right, dude, I need to know more about this terrain and respect it if I want to survive what I'm doing here, right? So that was probably the best year of my life of snowmobiling because it was the ignorance is bliss, right? But that drove me back into the EMS side, and I'm like I need to get on with ski patrol because I want to learn everything about avalanches because that is gnarly, dude. And if I want to protect my friends because we're out here doing dumb shit, I want to be the guy that has a little bit of voice of reason. So I got back into the EMS world. That was about 4 years into being out in Colorado, I'd say 3-4 years, and then that's when I started seeing like my first bit of trauma, which was interesting to me because I never really dealt with a lot of big like traumatic events, except with my own life and just like hard events, you know. And I saw some pretty big things on ski patrol, which shook me up a little bit, and I was able to kind of keep maintaining. And then I started doing EMS work on my dirt bike, which was the coolest thing to get paid to ride my dirt bike. Like I felt like a professional athlete to go out in the middle of the mountains and do EMS work, but be able to wheelie my dirt bike while getting paid, right? An event unfolded about a year before I ended up moving, where it was the best mountain bikers in the whole world were there. And it was the great mountain. It was Big Mountain Enduro, which is literally from all across the country and the world. People are here to mountain bike this trail. And I was watching these people that were just blowing my mind, dude, like the most epic things. And I'm sitting in a hammock, dude, drinking a Mountain Dew. And I'll never forget it because somebody came down and like skidded out in front of me. They're like, somebody's hurt. Somebody's doing CPR, I think. I don't know. I'm like, what? So I throw my boots on, I get on my dirt bike. Everybody that I'm doing EMS with is on mountain bikes. I was the only dirt biker. So I ended up doing literally was one-way traffic on a single track, and we're 40 miles out in the middle of nowhere. And I'm going up the trail and these professional mountain bikers who had traveled the world to race this race are now coming right at me. And I'm having to like blow them off course because they're still running for time. Like they're going around this guy who's dead in the middle of the track, right? So I ended up getting on scene. Needless to say, I was there about 45 minutes solo. The guy's best friend was there and he was helping me. And I was kind of switching in between CPR and bagging them and then suctioning with just a 60cc syringe and just moving back and forth. And then I ended up calling the race and having them stop because I got ran over a couple times and people were just flying, dude, like flying. And they started to kind of bunch up all these racers like, hey, man, like, how can we help? Everybody knew at that point what was going down. And I remember just trying to like mitigate the scene and manage the scene while doing compressions. And then like seeing, all right, this guy hasn't breathed well in a little bit. I need to go over and breathe. Hey, man, just do this. Just pump on this guy's chest. But it's this guy's best friend, right? So he's still trying to work through it. So we ended up like all of these mountain bikers. And what I love about just the community of mountain bikers in general is they're like, what can we do? I'm like, I need you to build me a backboard. We need to transport him to the helipad. Like, go down there. I want you to tell me, I know there's a field down there. Tell me how far it is down there. I need you guys to build me something that we can transport this guy. These dudes literally took 2 trees and broke them down, dude. And they put all of their packs on it. And then they cut their inner tubes and weave their inner tubes in and out. And we put this guy on a backboard and we're doing compressions and moving him to the helipad. And they ended up pronouncing him there about an hour and 15 or so into that scene. But I remember the next day, they ended up calling the whole race and they did a big like memorial ride. And I remember waking up the next morning like I couldn't move, dude. Like I couldn't get out of bed. My whole body was just trashed. But I remember just being like, nope, not doing that memorial ride, dude. Like I want no part of that. Like I did my job. It is what it is. But that was the first time that I'd ever been in a situation solo where my nervous system was so whacked out and I didn't know how to put it into place, right? I was able to do my job and do it very well, but I didn't know what it was going to do to my life after that, per se. And basically, that like 6 months to 8 months after that, I turned into a different person. It took me, I mean, 4 or 5 years now looking back to understand what was happening at that moment. Uh, but I got to a space where I was unhappy. I was just miserable. And I was like, how? And I always said when I moved there, dudes, all my friends, I want you to tell us you out loud, like, if I'm ever unhappy in this space, let me know because I have to go. Something's wrong and I have to fix it. And I remember all my friends just being like, bro, like, you're so angry. And I'm like, what? Like, no, I'm not, dude. I'm just telling you, like, that dude's an idiot. This is fucking stupid over here. This is dumb. What's going on over here? And just pointing out all the negative. Everything that I was focusing on was just the negative source, And it got to the point where I didn't know that, like, where focus goes, energy flows, right? Until now. But it got to the point where it was like, all right, like there needs to be a shift, right? I had a 2-year-old at that point, so I had become a dad in that moment, and I always was this incredible dad that had so much fun and so much joy. It took him everywhere, and I just started to see I was like a little shorter with him, and I didn't like that. And my wife Sarah got pregnant. We got pregnant again. I just remember being like, dude, we need a shift. We can't be ski bums anymore because we don't have help. I want to raise my family. I'm not trying to work all day while you work all night. We do this swap thing. Like I want to raise a family together and I want to own a house and we can't own a house here. And it was like, it's time to roll out. So we put in for 2 jobs, one in Frederick County, Maryland, where she's from and has, 200 relatives here. Cause it was a dream of mine as well to work and live in a space where my family lived. I wanted to run calls and know that I was protecting my family. Right.
Yeah.
Which is a whole nother ball game. Right?
Yeah.
Especially now, because then you have to worry about that fear of every call you run. Like, am I going to know this person? Is this my family? Right? So I ended up moving here and literally, dude, packed my shit and put it in a U-Haul. And we took off cross country. I got to Frederick, Maryland 6 days before the academy started.
Wow.
So I was already in this like fight or flight stage of just like, I don't know what's going on. I need to find happiness again. I need to find myself again. Kind of where I was at 8 years prior when I had left that girl and didn't know what was going on. I felt that way again. And it wasn't until I pulled into Frederick County, Maryland and unloaded my animals out of the U-Haul and like realized, oh my God, like I'm moving in to my in-laws house. Like, what? Like I have a child and another child on the way and I'm moving into my in-laws house. Like, what am I doing? I'm going backwards here, dude. And I went into full panic mode again. And I remember going into family night for the academy and just being in shock, like rolling out of there. And I remember my wife looked over at me and she's like, are you going to make it through this? And I was like, babe, there's no option. Like we've left everything. There's no option but to make it through. I had no idea it was going to be like this. I didn't know it was going to be this paramilitary, very strict mentality. And it was kind of game on. It was kind of everything on the table. This is the choice that we made as a family, and I won't fail. There's no option of failure. I'll go through and do everything I possibly can to do the best I can. Needless to say, dude, I'm like a D plus to a C minus student my whole life. And I graduated the academy with almost a 94% as the valedictorian, which was the
Nice.
first time that I ever felt that I was capable of like actually being intelligent. I never felt intelligent ever in my life. I can always fix things, but I was never like book smart. And I had realized like you only get what you put in. Like I read every single page of every single book in that academy because I was not going to fail. And I think that academy is where the catalyst started to really transition my life into kind of a new hope, if you will.
Sure. Yeah, I can see
Sorry, that
that
was a
for
little
sure.
long and drawn out, but
No. That's good. I guess this is more of a little side note, but I think that academy, especially the type of structure that we have in our recruit school, is kind of a catalyst like that for a lot of people. And it may be in different ways. It was for me. It came to me at a very dark point in my life when I really needed that. And I don't know. I think it did great things for me.
It makes you
So
very uncomfortable,
yeah,
and there's only growth in the uncomfortable world when you're trying to push through, and like it gives you hope. Like nothing's stopping me. I'm going, and you have
yeah.
a family behind you that's going to support you, if you will, and all your recruit friends. But it's a shakeup,
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Cool. All right. So recruit school went well. Then you get
It went
assigned
well.
to Station 3, right?
I did. I went to Station 3, and it was interesting because I felt excited to go. During all of this, right, I was living with my in-laws. So I was fully supported by my wife and my in-laws, and like they gave me all of that time to spend in the books. And I was very thankful for that. But once I got out into the field, there was a couple other things shifting. So my first shift was a Kelly, and my first shift on duty was 16 hours after my second child was born, where I went down to Station 3, ran 22 calls that day, and I was visiting my wife and my son in the hospital and just being like, oh my God, like this is rowdy, dude. Like I have no idea what's going on. I don't know how to write these reports. My wife is in the hospital with my newborn child. I live at my in-laws. Like we got to keep pushing. We got to keep going, right? And it was like I finally had what I thought I needed to be happy, and I was not there. I was like, well, I'll be happy when I get a house. I'll be happy when I get a new truck. I'll be happy, and just kept putting it on to the next thing. But you keep like having these big dreams and fulfilling them, and they weren't filling the cup that you thought it was going to do. And then it was just on to the next thing, and on to the next thing, on to the next thing. And it was a pretty hard few years there for the beginning, for sure, I would say.
Right. Yeah. So I guess that kind of leads us up to Ball Road.
Yeah.
So for people listening who aren't familiar, because I haven't talked about this incident a lot on this podcast, but this incident was kind of a catalyst for a lot of things. Almost everybody that works for us, it was a catalyst for something, right? But it's a big reason why I'm even doing this. Once you experience a line of duty death in your department, it changes your whole outlook on a lot of things, right? So I think a lot of guys that work for us have taken it and tried to do something positive with it, which is one of the reasons I'm doing this, and I know it's really helped push you into doing some positive things. So the background to this incident was it was August 11th, 2021, in a rural part of our county. So we're a county fire department, combination system, volunteer companies, career firehouses, and this incident happened outside of Frederick City. So Frederick City is part of the department. It's all one, countywide system. So we've got the city companies, and then we've got the county departments surrounding it. And this was in a more rural part of the county, kind of the southeastern-ish area. It was after a lightning storm, and I guess it ended up being a basement fire, which the initial arriving companies, were not aware that it was a basement fire at the time. But so the incident happened, and I'll let you tell your story. So you were involved. You were on Rescue Squad 3, correct?
Yeah, we were running as two that day.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let me back up just a little bit real quick before we get
Yeah.
into this, because I think it's important to understand that like it doesn't take a Mayday in order for somebody to really have a breakdown of their life. It can be the smallest call, and I believe thankfully for myself, that call for me was 15 months and 7 days before the Ball Road event. Otherwise, I don't know what would have happened that day, to be honest with you. And the call that really broke me was a call that didn't affect me at first, but it was a 3 a.m. call of a stillborn birth, and I rolled up on scene with another rookie who had only been on the job for maybe a few weeks. There was no medic on the call, and I just remember coming into this home and just seeing this family's face and knowing it wasn't well. And this little hand was coming out of this woman. And I remember like holding on to this little hand and just being like, come on, dude. Like, and like trying to help her push, right? And I remember the medic showed up who wasn't even dispatched. She's like, I saw it. I showed up. She's like, don't push. Let's go to the hospital. And I remember just hanging on to this hand and being like, come on, dude. Like, you can make this. We got this. Ended up taking her to the hospital. The child didn't make it. Went back to the station that night and fell asleep. No big deal. The next day, I still felt okay. I'm like, man, that call was a little messed up, but I'm all right. And I remember like washing my youngest child's hands in the sink, and I'm like scrubbing his hands, and I just lost it. Full meltdown of like seeing his hands living and just being like, what are you doing? Why are you not blessed right now? You are so blessed right now. You have everything that you can ever imagine to find happiness. Why are you miserable? Because once I got out in the field, I wasn't happy, dude. I got on all the antidepressants, on all of the anti-anxieties, on all the Adderall. I was on all these medications to the point where I was literally a ghost, dude. Like nothing was phasing me. I didn't feel emotion at all. I was just kind of there in autopilot. And I remember seeing his hands, dude, and just being like, something's got to change right now. I'm not stoked about my life. And there's no reason why I shouldn't besides my own perspective of it. I have to change my perspective now. And I had what I would like to call a spiritual awakening that day. And that was on May 4th of 2020. And from that day on, dude, I was like, I went back into the books and I'm like, I need to learn all about myself again. I need to learn about what fuels me. I need to do hard shit. I need to set big goals. I need to change my habits. I need to change everything about my life to start living for my family, because this is why I'm here. I'm here to serve my family and serve the community. So that was kind of my catalyst into my mindfulness movement, if you will, by somebody who rides jet skis and dirt bikes and snow sports and does all this crazy shit. I started finding myself meditating and just being like, what? Like, I'm meditating? Like, what is this all about? And just started to find so much peace because I started to realize what was going on here, dude. And like the radio chatter, we'll call it. Like when we're on scenes and you've heard the ball road, like there was so much radio chatter that was going down that we couldn't get the actual event onto the actual scanner, right? Onto the radio, because everyone else needed to say Tanker 22 on scene, or this on scene, or this going on, or this going on, all this like shit that didn't matter. Until you actually sit still and be with yourself, you don't realize that this thing is on 9 Alpha, 9 Bravo, 9 Charlie, 9 Delta, all at once, wide open. You know what I mean? So I started to find a lot of peace within myself and started to realize the negative thought patterns that were happening, the limited beliefs that were happening. Found yoga that was deeply, deeply moving because it was very difficult, and it was started to regulate my nervous system. And I'm like, whoa, what's the possibilities of life, dude? Like, I'm limitless. I started thinking I'm limitless. Let's go. Let's let's be happy. Let's be loving again. Let's get off all of these medications and let's start using movement as medication. Let's start using breath as medication. Let's start using stillness and silence as medication. So 15 months into that journey, I was vibing hard. I was running triathlons. I was running marathons. I was doing all of these things. I was training for an Ironman. I was like on top of the world, dude. And I remember being on the phone with one of my best friends who was one of the big reasons why I moved out to Colorado. And we were just talking about life. And he was an alcoholic for 35, I mean, a crazy amount of years until his father passed and he stopped drinking. And he was on this journey as well. And we're just talking about how incredible the world is and how blessed we are to have healthy family members and how blessed we are to live this lifestyle that we're living and living our dreams. And literally, I'm outside of Station 3 and I'm talking to him. I was on the front ambulance, right? And it's like, I hear the 3 beeps and I'm on the phone and I turn around and I'm like, well, I'm not on it. And then I'm like, why is my gear on the ground? My gear's on the ground. Hold on, dude. I got to roll, man. I got to see what's going on here. Bloop. Hey, dude. Why is my gear on the ground? Oh, some volunteers just showed up. They didn't tell you? No, they didn't tell me. Okay, well, I look over, the engine's gone. Well, all there is Rescue Squad 2, which I've never ridden on because Squad 3 is normally there, but it was out for service per usual. So I was like, all right, dude, well, I'm going. I'm not going to just sit here. So I threw my shit on the rig, never did a pack check, never had any idea of what was actually on the rig, never looked at the rig. And I just remember getting in there and like throwing my gear on and just being like, all right, dude, like, let's go. Sweet, fire. Let's roll, you know, pretty excited. And I never really been on a big fire at that time that was worth anything, you know, at least anything without any visibility. And I remember just like listening to the headset, just kind of chilling, you know, like trying to keep my mindset going. I had been at a Fish concert the night before with my wife, so I was like still vibing in this like funky atmosphere. Like, all right, dude, let's have some fun, you know. And I remember turning on to Ball Road and hearing the Mayday and being like, "Ooh, okay, shit, let's go. Like, what's going on scene? Let me paint this picture right now. What's going on? What am I going to do when I get there?" And started planning out everything. These are my steps. This is what I need to do. And I remember rolling in. and I was in really good shape, and it was a pretty good hill climb to even get to the damn house. And we had a park way down the road, probably like, I don't know, 300 yards down the road, we'll say. Yeah, dude, that thing was off to the races. I'd never seen anything myself like it at the time. And I remember the guy that was riding with me in the back, who I'm stationed with now, is a really dear friend of mine. I love him a lot. And as we were coming around the Bravo corner, there was so much smoke that he started choking, and we couldn't even get through it. I remember just being like, let's go, dude. And we got pushed into the Charlie, where we met up with the chief, who had been on scene the whole time, that was doing everything that he could. And they moved us over into the Delta side to try to gain access. Everybody was having a hard time gaining access to the basement, and we ended up finding that basement door.
So this was a crew of 4, correct? It was
Crew 4.
initially a crew of 3. You ended up being extra staffing.
Correct.
So you guys found, yeah, let me back up. So initially, we didn't even know if this house had a basement.
Yep.
When you go back and listen, it was a giant
Huge house.
mansion house, yeah. Plus fences and stuff in the way, and the hill, everything. Unable to complete a 360 initially. And then the way that the atmosphere was that day, it's pretty incredible if you go look at some of the pictures and kind of what you were describing here. The smoke was laying really low and covering everything. So even on the outside, I know there was guys who you couldn't see anything, guys who were on air already.
Yeah.
Even though they were outside. I know there were attempts from other crews to go through the hole, which ended up not working out. And then you guys found the basement door.
Yeah.
So, yeah, can you talk about that? Like,
sure.
What you're thinking before you make entry, or what happens once you get in there?
It was interesting because we did a RIT drill. When was that, Hank? 2 weeks before that?
It was almost a month to the day.
Yeah.
And I remember that because I put that drill together.
Yeah.
That was one of those things where I was assigned to the training academy at the time, and we had that acquired structure, and they wanted to put together a RIT drill, and the battalion chief of training and the lieutenant of training gave me basically free reign with that building to put a drill together. So I designed that drill the way it was, and at the time I thought it was a lot of fun, and it was pretty intense but obtainable, but it was something that we hadn't done much of as a division. And so I was actually kind of proud of that drill, and then not knowing that 1 month later it was really going to be put to the test.
Yeah, well, number one, I want to thank you for that, because a couple different aspects. That was like the first time for being in the field of actually having real life training where you had to use your mind. And number two, you probably saved my life, just to say that and state that with all my heart. So thank you. Thanks. And the reason why I say that is a couple different things. I'm a person that likes to ask lots of questions. Sometimes in class it pisses people off, but I'm a person that when I went camping, I would have a whole truck full of shit because I knew all of my friends so well of what they would forget, and I wanted to have what they needed in preparation. So same thing. I remember running that RIT drill, and I remember how realistic it was, and we got to think outside the box and use our brains. And I remember during the hot wash, I talked to the lieutenant, and I was talking to him about why I asked, like, is he breathing? Why does that matter? Well, I want to know if he's breathing because I'm not going to lug this big ass bag in here of a RIT bag to give someone air that they're not going to use. I'd rather work swiftly and go in there and make moves to get him out here so we can actually save his life. And he was so upset with me for asking. He's like, why is it always you, Prieur? It's always you asking these stupid fucking questions, right? And I'm like, dude, like, I just need to know because this might be something that might come up. And needless to say, like you said, 4 weeks later, I literally had the RIT pack at the top of those stairs, and I was masking up, and my captain was down trying to force the door. And I looked at him, and I'm like, Cap, I said, what's up with the bag? And he said, it's up to you. And I was like, nope, I don't want it. I don't want it. And it's been really interesting because as I'm writing the speech for Key City Conference, I actually listened to the footage, the radio traffic for the first time. It's been 4 years, and I had never listened to it. I still had a lot of healing to do. As we made access was when Captain Laird stated, tell my family I love them. And it's been so impactful for me because I'm like, man, like even what I knew then and the mindset and to stay focused what if I would have heard that, what would I have done differently? Because I would have then put my perspective of my family and my kids would have went right into here and here, and maybe I would have done a lot of different things that day, right? But it was one of those things where there wasn't a lot of talking. Like I said, yo, Cap, what about this bag? And I went down there, and he was struggling a little bit with the tool he was using, and I gave him a Halligan, and I used the sledge, or I used just the axe. We got in there, dude, and I was already masked up, ready to rip. And when that door popped, it was off to the races. You're freezing a little bit. Just make sure you're here with me still.
Yeah, I just had an internet issue. I'm not sure what
You there?
happened, but I think I have it back.
All right.
So before you started dropping off, you were talking about being at the door, asking your captain about the rip pack, and
Yeah.
then you eventually just said no, you're not taking it.
Yeah. So I decided not to take it. We were all masked up. We were ready to rip. Went down, helped Cap pop the door. It was me and the technician at the time who were ready to rip at that point. And we popped that door, and literally as the door opened, we like saw the smoke conditions, let it settle for a second, and it was off to the races. We went, as we were coming around the Charlie side, I remember seeing the ladder that they tried to use to get him out, and just like picturing that over and over in my mind, like that's where I'm going, that's where I'm going, that's where I'm going, and this is what it's going to look like. I had such a high level of belief of what was going to happen that day. Once I was on scene, like there was no doubt. Like I feel like in times in life, it's all about perspective because we're creating this reality that we live in, and a lot of times we can be stuck in this fear state, and you have either fear or faith, and it's a choice every day for us to choose one or the other. Well, fear is false evidence appearing real, right? It's so important to understand that most of the shit that we fear is because of things that have happened to us in the past, not in the present moment, right? It was like, no, I'm living present. We're going to get him. We're going to get him. And that's where we're going. And this is how we're going to do it. And it was interesting because so many things went through my mind as I'm like literally turning down the radio chatter in my mind to stay present, stay focused, and being mindful, And when that door popped and we started crawling in, we beelined it. And I remember hanging on to my technician's ankle for like the first 4 moves because that's what I did in the academy. Because God forbid you do anything outside of what they say or you're going to get in trouble. And it had that fear. And I remember literally hanging onto his ankle and being like, this isn't effective. This isn't effective. And I let go. And then I literally flashed back into me sitting in a tree stand a year prior, learning about the body and learning about the nervous system and what happens when we go into fight or flight.
We're good. Keep going.
You still there?
I'm still fighting a cold, so
You keep doing your thing.
yeah, keep going.
So I remember being like, I don't know, 4 or 5 crawls in there, letting go of my technician and just being like, my ears are going to turn off. I have to turn them back on. I have to turn them back on because I knew that during fight or flight, we start to shut down systems that are no longer needed, right? So I remember like conditions were nothing that I've ever experienced. It was full blackout. And I remember turning my ears back on and just being like, I remember in the academy, they're like, just stop every so often and listen. Stop and listen. And I stopped and I turned my ears on, and that's when I heard the pass device. And I'm like, it sounds like right there. And I did like 3 crawls, reached up, dude, and literally like, again, it comes back to faith and having a belief in a higher power than yourself. I felt like that day I was just the vessel. And that's exactly what happened. I literally reached up and hit the door handle. Like, boom. There was no searching. I was just like, boom, grabbed it. And I remember opening that up and hearing that pass device so loud and then calling my technician over. And inevitably, that's when we found Captain Laird, kind of pulled him up in the legs, and then started making some moves after that.
Yeah, that's there's a lot there. So once you found him, there was a little bit of I don't know. I feel like I'm speaking for you. This is your story, not mine.
Sure.
But
It was chaos for a second.
yeah. So there was chaos, and you guys were trying to package him, assess him, whatever.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So it was interesting because right as we found him, I pulled him up and I remember feeling his face piece and I remember hearing like the last breath. And that was like, all right, dude, like we got to go now. We got to go right now. I remember I kept reaching over to try to silence his pass alarm and I kept reaching and I wasn't hitting it. And I tried like 3 times and I'm like, screw it. Let's just make moves. and all these boxes were everywhere. There was boxes literally everywhere. So every time you take one and throw it, it would like come back down, and you take it and throw it, and then you'd kind of like swim through it. And I remember Walty was over to my right, and I'm like, we need to get over, and we need to convert his waist belt. You know, I'm like, we got to convert him. We got to convert him, because I went to pull for his drag device, and it wasn't happening at all. So then I went to pull from the pack, and the pack almost slid all the way off. And I was like, all right, dude, we got to convert it. We got to convert it. And I went back to that training academy. Like, my subconscious mind was already programmed to be like, do this, do this. So we tried the grab handle, didn't work. Then we tried using the pack, didn't work. So I literally used Waltz's leg, and I stepped on his leg, and I jumped over top. I remember like falling in boxes, jumping over top, and then I reached down to grab his belt to convert it, and it wasn't there to convert, and I couldn't find the actual pieces, because when you convert that thing, like, you grab the buckle, you click it, and you don't let go of that, because
Yeah.
you ain't gonna find it with your gloves on. And I knew that, but I kept reaching down. There was nothing there, and I was so thankful that the captain off 231 was there, because right as I found him and I reached for my radio to radio in that we had found him, literally I heard him like, they're on him, they just found him, we'll be out, this is what we need, we're coming out the Delta side, get EMS on. And I'm like, thank you, he's right there, he's sitting in the door, I know he's right there. And I had so much of like this relief of like, all right, we have help is here kind of thing, because you couldn't see, right? So it was one of those deals where it was like, look, this isn't working, this isn't working, this is, and I was a big belief of failure just being your first attempt in learning. And I kept failing. I failed at that, I failed at that, I failed at that. And we just got to keep moving. You got to keep moving. You got to get the hell out of here. And it was getting really bad. We were hearing a lot of steam conversion up above us, and the conditions were getting not awesome. So it was a matter of like just thinking as best as I could. Like, the only thing that I knew was to throw both his legs up on my shoulder. I put my face right in his belly, and I just started running. I just started running with everything that I had. Literally everybody that was there just helped guide us right to the door. I didn't see. I was just like the horsepower behind wherever they were steering, And there was a hand line that ended up making a little ways in, and a couple of my good friends that were there to help guide us out of there, And I remember like going over the threshold of that basement door, and a good friend of mine from the academy, Trevor Meter, who does a lot at the academy now, who is just the most disciplined human on this planet that I just love so dearly, and his family. We went to a training in, I want to say it was Pittsburgh, but these guys who had the fast board, who I thought was fascinating, they were teaching us how to get a firefighter out of their gear rapidly. And I remember leaving the academy, leaving that and being like, dude, everything else was kind of like, it was like, okay. We were kind of like almost teaching it, a lot of the things, but that, I remember like, Meter, this is so impactful. Why do we not have this? Why do we not know about this? This is like what can save someone's life. This is for real the difference between 4 minutes and 30 seconds, which is huge.
Yeah.
So I remember like that was the first thing that was going through my head as we went over the threshold, is I'm like, let's go, let's start stripping them. And I like remember popping up. I remember them pulling his face piece off and looking up, and like I didn't realize or understand who it was. I'd only worked 1 or 2 shifts with him before, and I was like, man, that's not who I thought it was. I don't remember that. And then another guy that I was stationed with was like, not here, let's get him out, because we were in that like deep stairwell. So I remember just grabbing his right leg, on the left side, and just putting it over his shoulder, and we carried him up and out. And we put him on the ground right there, and that's when I like ripped my mask off, puked a couple times of just like the amount of exertion I went through, and then depacked, and then went over and helped with compressions and helped with like positioning the head for intubation and all those things before we ended up landing the copter in the backyard.
That's that's a lot.
It was a lot, but it was all within like 4 minutes, and that's what was wild. Like, it was so quick. There was so much that went down so quick.
That is one of the things in recruit school now. I teach or lead the safety and survival program. We go over the incident, we listen to the audio, and we actually compare it to like the nationwide statistics from Project Mayday, and it's pretty incredible how fast everything went down. How fast getting him out was. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but I do have them written down in the presentation. It far exceeds the national average for time. And when you couple that with the fact that the entire assignment wasn't even on scene yet, a massive, massive house. Like, that point where you guys made entry into the basement where you found him, it wasn't a short distance.
No.
I don't know. It just seems pretty incredible, So
What?
ultimately, it's not the end result that we look for, but, all the guys that were there working, I think did an incredible job. As
I
an
agree.
outsider's perspective, I wasn't on the call,
Yeah.
but it's I don't know. I think you guys you did a very good job in something. I actually wrote this down. You said fear or faith, and it's one of those things. It seems like that's kind of what you have to have in the moment, right? Like,
That's in life, man.
yeah. So
Period. In life, if you want abundance, you want love, you want happiness, like you have to lean towards faith. Otherwise, everything that's going to come through fear, it's not real until you make it real because you're like, well, I know, and that's the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. It's the same thing, fear or faith, fixed mindset, growth mindset. How many officers do you work with and say, well, this is the way we always do it? This is the way we always do it. Well, guess what, dude? You're never going to grow in that. Well, this is the way my life is. This is the way that I do it. Well, how is it, man? Are you happy? No. Well, then why do you keep doing it that way? Is it working? No. Why do you keep doing it that way? Well, this is the way it is. No, that's what you're choosing. You're choosing that every day. Because I truly believe and feel in my heart that we have a choice every day to wake up. Do you want to serve the world or you just want to consume the bullshit in it, dude? Like, it's a choice. We're here to serve. If you're a firefighter, I don't care what you say, you're here to serve, dude. Like, either serve your family, serve your shift mates, or serve the community. And I feel like over time as a firefighter and over time as a servant to the community, we become jaded. We become in this person that we don't know who it is because of the shit that we've seen or the things that we know,
yeah,
which just leads us down the fear road. And there's no fun there, And we put up these boundaries and these walls, and it's like, boundary tapes work. Boundaries are important, Putting your fire line tape up, who's that going to keep out? The fearful ones. Most people are going to duck it. But then you have these other guys that put up these huge walls to protect themselves. And you're like, hey, man, check out the sunset. No, dude, I can't see that, man. These walls are too big. It's like, that's not serving you anymore, dude. And it's like, as you become mindful, as you become present in your life and become aware of your thoughts, you can start taking those blocks down and start giving them to people as like, hey, dude, this is what I learned that might help you,
yeah,
because I feel like there's so much growth when you can teach others what you learned in the shit. So then you don't have to watch people that you love go through the shit. And that's the ultimate goal, is to keep bettering people every single day to the best of our ability. And that's what's going to grow our life into more of a happier state, more of the homeostasis state that's going to be ultimately love.
So let's talk about the aftermath then. I know there were
Yeah.
some things you had to deal with after, and then what what you did with it.
Yeah. That was a tough one. And it's been interesting writing the speech this year because I've dove a lot deeper than I did last year, and was able to really transcribe exactly how to work through like the emotional baggage as a firefighter. And I built it in a way because I'm like, what do firefighters know how to do? Well, they know how to run first two boxes. They can tell you everything about it, and every single aspect of every single person, depending on where you're riding on the rig and what rig you're on. Cool. Well, that's what I'm going to model then, because it's important to model what's already there. So I've modeled now my whole speech on a first due box and what that looks like on the emotional side and how to work through that emotionally. Because I was pretty spun up on that when this event happened, but it only worked to a certain spot, because everything that I was believing, everything that I was saying, everything that I thought to be true was being told a different direction in as it kind of came forward, and as
Yeah,
people started to be interviewed or not interviewed, it was kind of like it felt a lot like it was being steered in the direction it needed to go instead of being steered in truth and honesty. And that was really hard for me, coming from somebody who really thrives on integrity and doing the right thing no matter what it does for you. Like, just take like extreme ownership, dude. Like, take accountability for your own shit. And I went through some pretty hardcore turmoil in seeing the direction that some of it went. And it was pretty confusing to me and I found a lot of anger that was still inside of me that I thought I had like let go of, if you will. So I was like back on that journey of trying to find that happiness again, if you will.
Yeah, your speech last year was pretty incredible. I sat in on it, and the way you related what was going on in your mind, in your body, you related it to a house fire.
Hmm.
And it was all terms that I could understand, and I'm an
Yeah.
idiot. So,
No, that's
you
not
know,
true. You're very smart.
yeah, it's great, man, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you've done with it this year.
Yeah, I've kind of created it this year to take it more around the country, not just for Key City. I felt like last year I was still trying to work through a lot of the trauma of it, and I wasn't ready to listen to the radio traffic of it. I was like willing to give enough, but not my whole heart. And I feel like this year I really dove really deep this year, and I've been through a lot, even after that fire, just personal living and family traumas, and I had to find my love for the job again.
Sure.
I felt like I was so burnt out, and this job wasn't giving me what I thought I was going to get out of it. And I just like found myself in a space where I was like, I don't even want to be here anymore. And then I was like, all right, dude, like I'm gonna make a goal. My goal is to get into the academy and to teach some yoga. So and to get ice baths in there. Like my biggest goal is like I want to get ice baths in the academy and I want to get yoga on board because I feel like if I had those things at the beginning of my career, I wouldn't have had to go through some of the things that I did because I was putting myself in a very uncomfortable position every single day willingly, right? And that's where growth comes in, is like willingly putting yourself in an uncomfortable position in order to grow from that because you know it's better in your life. Like I've done probably 500 ice baths at this moment, and it still sucks every day, and it still activates my sympathetic nervous system. No matter how many times I get in that cold water and try to fight it, I will not win until you let that go. It's like that's where the growth is. So that was a big goal of mine in this academy that started up 2 months ago or so, almost 2 months ago. We got that. And it's like I'm so proud to be part of that transition. And I'm so proud to be part of a department that's willing to understand the importance of mindfulness and the importance of mindset and the importance of like getting really uncomfortable in a way that's actually bettering your life. So it's like I'll be in there 6 times throughout the academy, so once a month through yoga, and then they're now ice bathing. I think each squad's doing it once a week as well. So I got to see that today, which was really, it's been cool, man. It's been a lot of fun to really keep pushing into that uncomfortable environment because the fire service is a service that, unfortunately is like, this is the way it always has been.
Yeah,
It's like, dude, but how is it working out? Ask your fourth wife. Let her know. You know what I mean? Like, it's
yeah.
like, dude, like, look, your garage is just full of beer cans, bro. You live by yourself. Is this really what you want in life? Like, I know you want more than that. So I'm like very proud to be part of a department who's actually transitioning into more of a state where they're willing to make some shifts and seeing the difference in their own personal realities in order to be like, all right, dude, like, there's something to this. It's not just this woo woo. Let me sit in silence. Let me stretch my body in weird positions. It's like, it's uncomfortable, dude. And that's where the growth comes.
So what's next for you? You got anything else coming down the pipe?
Yeah, dude, I got some huge stuff coming out of the pipes. I've been working on for about 3 years. It's called the Framework to Freedom, and it is a full course on literally how to take you through each and every step from basically becoming aware of where you're at and teaching mindfulness techniques and breathing techniques and yoga techniques, if you will, but then really dissecting your life and figuring out where you're at and then figuring out what's holding you back from living your ultimate reality. And my wife and I are both mindset coaches. She's an empowerment coach as well. And we've created a whole course on literally all about a self-guided course that you have my wife and I every now and then periodically to teach you kind of how to uncover some of these things of what's going on in your life and why you're burnt out and how to overcome burnout and how to be more well balanced of that give and that take, and even understanding like, when you come up on scene, do you have a plug at the front yard or are you waiting on tankers? Like what's your energy, and is your energy focused in? Is it focused on fear or faith? Do you have a growth mindset? Do you have a fixed mindset? You know, it's like, do you have goals? What are your daily habits? What do your systems look like? How are you setting your family up each and every day for success? That way, when you go to the firehouse, you can see them succeed when you're not home. You know what I mean? Because my kids, we homeschool. We have our kids 7 days a week, and it's incredible. But the kids' systems now are dialed, right? These kids are thriving. My 8-year-old just ran a snow cone stand for 100 kids at co-op today that he built himself with all dye-free organic. Like, these kids are like, they're beautiful and they're amazing. It's like, I want to be present enough to be with my children, to watch them thrive, to watch them be incredible human beings. So my wife and I have created Real Elevation, and it's all about empowering people into becoming like the ultimate version of themselves and letting go of their old versions, but out of like love, instead of being like, no, I don't. There's no longer. You can't be like that anymore. I won't be like that. It's like, no, dude. Like, let's look at it. Let's learn from it and be thankful that we went through that in order to be where we're at today. And that's all about really understanding post-traumatic growth. We always talk about post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's like, number one, it's not a disorder. It's an injury. It's a post-traumatic stress. It's injury. We can heal from it. We can grow exponentially from it if we're willing to change the story. If you're not the victim, being the victim makes the world really, really hard. I think we've seen that over the past few years of the victim mindset that some have, of like they feel just totally disempowered. And it's like, no, dude, you have to change it into a growth mindset. You got to get out of that fixed version and come into the version that you want. But that takes a lot of intentionality and understanding where you're at, why you want what you want, and what are you willing to do to get it. You know, it's like I say, when you get on scene, like, you have a choice. Like, what are you willing to risk? What are you willing to risk for your brother that's in there? What are you willing to risk for your neighbor? What are you willing to risk for your family? And then it's like, what are you willing to risk for yourself? What are you willing to do for yourself to get uncomfortable and to push your beliefs? When I started training for the Ironman, I didn't know how to swim, but that wasn't even like, it wasn't even a thought. Cool, but somebody could teach me how to do that. You know what I mean? Like, it's all about understanding that we are completely limitless. The only limits that we have is what's right here and what's not in our hearts, you know, and finding that gratitude into our own lives, because gratitude is where everything changes, you know, and
Yeah.
a lot of it comes from understanding that our expectations of people are holding us back tremendously, especially someone like me who's always had this expectation that people weren't showing up, and I was sitting so frustrated. When you can turn expectation into appreciation and gratitude, your life will change forever, and you'll be able to wake up with a smile on your face and just be so blessed for the life that you're living, and be proud of yourself and be proud about the family that you're creating. But it takes a lot of work, and it was something that I wished I would have had a little bit of framework to help me through some of these processes, instead of just spending a crazy amount of money on personal development and reading a crazy amounts of books and getting certified in all of these different things, and certified in trauma-informed yoga and meditation. So it's like, all right, well, I have all these tools now. I want to give them away. I want to teach people how to do these things in order to better their lives, because that's why we're here, to serve and to love. So I'm excited about that, and that's kind of the big move.
That's incredible, dude. Um, you really are taking negative things and trauma and turning it into something positive, not just for yourself, but for everyone else too. So
I'm trying, man, and
it's
just know, for
incredible.
everyone that's listening, like, my day is not all rainbows and fairy tales. You know, I still go through and wake up in a way where I'm like, man, I'm not stoked. I'm a little pissed off right now. Or I work with negative people who are just angry at the world. And guess what? You absorb a little bit of that. And it takes a lot of mindfulness and a lot of boundaries to make it through. So just know, like, I'm still processing it every single day, but I'm aware of it enough to understand it enough, because I want to dive deeper to understand more and more and what's still triggering me, you know, because if you're triggered by it, you haven't healed it, you know? So it's been a really cool process to understand and to learn. And it's like, you just got to have a lot of faith and a lot of hope that you deserve to be happy. You deserve to live a life of love and have a career that's incredible, because we have the best freaking job in the world, hands down, without a doubt in my mind. So it's all about, like, what are you doing with it? What are you willing to do for it?
Where can they find you at?
Yeah, so we're at realelevation.com. Otherwise, we got an Instagram, Real Elevation, as well. And we got a page on our Instagram or on our website that'll take you to some free content, then as well as like signing up for the Framework to Freedom. Otherwise, you can come to the Key City Conference, and we'll be there hanging out all week. And I think what I'm bringing to the table for the Key City Conference is going to be fire, and I'm super stoked for it. And people will leave that conference with a handful of tools that'll actually change their life before they leave that room, and I'm really excited about that.
Awesome. TJ, thank you very much, brother. I
Yeah,
really
dude,
appreciate
thank
it.
you. I really appreciate you a lot. And like, you saved my life, dude, and I owe you my life, and I love you for it, and I appreciate you a lot.
I don't know about all that, man, but love you
Well,
too.
I do. Yeah, dude. Have a
All
great
right.
day, Bob.
Yeah, man.
Peace.